本当に映画作りたいんだったらその脚本を書きなさいと、で脚本だったらわらばんしと鉛筆があれば書けるんだ、ね、で本当に映画のなんていうの骨格なりね、映画っていうのはどういうものかっていうのを具体的につかむのを脚本をリードする以外にないんだから、シナリオを。でそれを言うんですよ、とね。
Akira Kurosawa is widely regarded as one of the most influential and critically acclaimed directors of all time, and for good reason. His work has inspired film for decades to come. It's very easy to see why so many artists are drawn to his works like Seven Samurai, Rashomon, Yojimbo, and so on. With a rich filmography spanning over 30 films over 50 years, I'll go in-depth about some of the works of art that he has inspired, from unofficial remakes to his camera work. Let's just talk about some Kurosawa. Picture this. It's 1964 and you just got front row seats to Sergio Leone's newest film, Fistful of Dollars. The story revolves around a lone cowboy who stumbles upon a small town warring against itself. Ever the trickster, the man with no name, or simply Joe, works both for and against each side. But things go south when his plan is foiled. Now, picture this. It's 1961, and you just got front row seats to Akira Kurosawa's newest film, Yojimbo. The story revolves around a lone Ronin who stumbles upon a small town warring against itself. Ever the trickster, the Ronin, under the fake name Kubuwatake Sanjuro, works both for and against each side, but things go south when his plan is foiled. You're starting to notice a pattern here, aren't you? Yes, Fistful of Dollars was not just a loose adaptation of Yojimbo, but in fact a beat-for-beat remake. In fact, I'm going to play a little game with you right now. I'm going to show you a scene from Yojimbo, and you tell me where it correlates to in A Fistful of Dollars. First scene. Before Sanjuro even walks into town, this lovely dog tries his hardest to give our protagonist a helping hand. Now, where do they have this scene in A Fistful of Dollars? In our next scene, Sanjuro learns that the mayor's wife, Nui, has been kidnapped by gang leader Sebe. Learning this, Sanjuro tricks the rival gang leader into giving him Nui's location, storms the room, kills the guards, rescues his girl, and stages the whole thing as an attack to trick Seibei and his men. And now, can you tell me the corresponding scene in A Fistful of Dollars? Final scene. When Sanjuro visits the town tavern, he meets the tavern's owner, Gonji, who fills Sanjuro in on the details regarding the town's rival factions. And where might this scene be in A Fistful of Dollars? This pattern was not lost on Kurosawa, who sent a letter to director Sergio Leone regarding this discrepancy, writing, "Signor Leone, I have just had the chance to see your film. It is a fine film, but it is my film." Damn! It also caught the attention of Toho, Yojimbo's production company, who sued Sergio for over $100,000 and 15% of the film's receipts. Despite A Fistful of Dollars being a controversial film legally, the film received great praise throughout the States, although it was originally shunned by Italian critics. And its influence cannot be denied as a progenitor of the spaghetti western genre, and arguably westerns as a whole. Its two sequels, 1965's For a Few Dollars More, and especially 1966's The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, were also met with critical acclaim, the latter being up there as one of the most famous westerns of all time, with films like John Ford's The Searchers and Fred Tinnaman's High Noon. Funnily enough, in his biography, Something Like a Biography, Akira Kurosawa mentions John Ford as a massive influence on his work, as well as other American directors like William Wyler and Frank Capra. It's ironic to see a Western director inspire Kurosawa to make films that went on to inspire Western directors, such as Steven Spielberg. You know him, you love him. Arguably the most successful director of all time, up there with the likes of James Cameron, Tim Burton and Michael Bay. Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, E.T., Saving Private Ryan.
Who are you talking to right now?
Schindler's List, The Colour Purple, the list goes on. While Spielberg has never openly labelled Kurosawa as an influence, his inspiration is undeniable. Compare this scene from his film Raiders of the Lost Ark and this scene from 1952's Ikiru. Focus on the blocking and staging of the scene and where the actors and camera draw your attention to and how. In this scene in Ikiru, bureaucrat Kanji Watanabe, played by the legendary Takashi Shimura in his 11th Kurosawa film, is in the hospital waiting to hear a diagnosis. Whilst waiting, a nearby patient goes on and on about a person who he believes has cancer and starts listing the symptoms of it, which Kanji realises he might have. Look at how the camera never moves during the scene. Your eyes are drawn to the patient through the staging of Kanji whilst keeping him in frame. So when the scene wants you to bring your focus back to Kanji, it simply focuses in on Kanji's face, which I think is more effective than a simple cut, as it allows the audience to remember Kanji is in this scene and see his reaction. Simple, but very effective. Compare the blocking and staging in that scene to this scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark. This scene is a great example of what is commonly referred to as a Spielberg wallow. Every Frame a Painting has a great video that goes more in depth about the subject that I'd highly recommend. In the scene, Indy is being persuaded to stop pursuing the Ark of the Covenant, but he ain't having it. Again, pay attention to how the camera and characters move to change the scene and keep the audience's focus on what the film wants them to. The scene starts with both Indy and Brody as our focus in the scene, as they both take up equal space in the shot before they move. See how Spielberg moves the characters and camera instead of, say, cutting to the next room as they walk in. By doing this, the scene retains its continuity while also being more dynamic and thus more visually interesting. As Indy and Brody move into the living room, Brody takes up the centre stage as he speaks, visually showing the importance of what he has to say. Brody is our focus now. Suddenly, Indiana walks past Brody, interrupting the scene and suddenly shifting our gaze to what he is doing. Our focus is on Indy now. We see as Indiana packs to leave, but suddenly, Brody says something that catches both Indy's and the audience's attention. The film shows this through Indy turning his head, and since Indy is our focus for the scene, we follow his movement to Brody. He is now our focus. The rest of the scene is pretty much the same, so I won't go over all of it, but just from the portion shown, you can see how much of a genius Spielberg is as a director. You might be able to see the similarities between the blocking in Spielberg's films and Kurosawa's. Whilst there are plenty of other directors inspired by Kurosawa, I want to take a break from film to highlight a video game inspired by him, and it doesn't help that it's one of the best games of all time in my opinion. I'm of course talking about Sucker Punch's 2020 masterpiece, Ghost of Tsushima. Set on the titular Tsushima Island. He said it! He said it! You play as Jin Sakai, a samurai who grapples with his ideologies and questions the code of honor he swore to follow when the island is overrun by the Mongol Empire, led by the ruthless Right, Jin. Calm down, jeez. Now, for the sake of brevity and to avoid spoilers, I will only be showing and talking about scenes from the first act of the game. Right off the bat, Ghost of Tsushima is very obviously inspired by samurai movies of old. Films like Harakiri, Hiroshi Inagaki's Samurai trilogy. Hell, one of the charms of the game, the carnage charm, feels like an homage to the bloodier samurai movies of the 70s and 80s, like Shogun Assassin and Lady Snowblood, which in of itself was an homage to the iconic final duel in Kurosawa's Sanjuro, which has inspired films like Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill duology and other games like From Software's Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. And if you don't want to take my word for it, the developers themselves have cited Kurosawa as an influence. Creative director Nate Fox mentioned Seven Samurai as an influence, stating, "It's impossible for me to think about what it is to be a samurai without picturing the warriors brought so vividly to life in this film." Fellow art/creative director Jason Connell stated that, "From when I was very young, 1962's Yojimbo instilled in me what it means to be a wandering ronin, moving calmly towards a group of enemies without a care in the world." The relationship between Jin and his uncle Shimura could have been inspired by the dynamic of a youthful arrogance being guided by an unwanted mentor, as shown by Nobuo Yasumoto and Kyojo Nide, aka Redbeard, in 1965's titular Redbeard, as said by animations director Billy Harper. That's not even mentioning Kurosawa mode. You might have noticed that throughout the footage is that a lot of it is black and white. This is Kurosawa mode. It doesn't just add a black and white filter, but also film grain and edits the audio to sound older as well. So, when you sit down and feel like maybe watching a western or a Spielberg film or playing some Ghost of Tsushima, there's only one man to thank, and that man is Akira Kurosawa.
監督になりたいってね、今監督一本の写真撮るのにね、大変な金かかるわけですよ。簡単には監督にはなれないしね、それにはいろんな修行もしなきゃならないし、いろんな経験積まなきゃならないし、そう簡単に監督になれるわけじゃないけど、本当に映画を作りたいんだったら、その脚本を書きなさいと。脚本だったらわらばんしと鉛筆があれば書けるんだ、で本当に映画のなんていうの骨格なりね、映画っていうのはどういうものかって っていうのを具体的に掴むのは脚本リードする以外にないんだから、シナリオを。でそれを言うんですよ。とね、それでも書かないんで、